We have repeatedly emphasized the need to recognize fear and face it without disguise as a crucial step in the undoing of the ego. This is Alison Anton. You're listening to the ForgiveNest Podcast for A Course in Miracles, your place to explore ACIM topics in meditation, healing, and your special function in forgiveness. This is part 4 of my course-based series called The Root of All Emotion. This episode is more of an intro to the meditation practice that follows. The link to the meditation is in the show notes of this post, where you can also find the links to parts 1 through 3 of this series. I just wanted to explain here the steps in the meditation so that we can better sink into the practice when we do it together. The first thing I wanted to say is that this way of meditating with our emotions is one deeper way we can apply any workbook lesson from A Course in Miracles. Whatever our practice statement is for the day, or whatever the specific lesson has us working on, we can search our body for emotional reactions coming up in response to the day's lesson. Some lessons are very specifically aimed at emotion, but others aren't necessarily. But honestly, I've personally never opened a workbook lesson, or a text section for that matter, that didn't stir some kind of emotional reaction in me, sometimes intense emotion. A Course in Miracles is going to trigger us in many kinds of emotional ways. There's definitely no lack of material to work with on this path. In part 1 of this series, I suggested that practicing this way with emotions might be best suited for course students who've gone through the text and the workbook already and are looking to deepen their practices and their work with Jesus as their teacher and guide. Ask Jesus and the Holy Spirit for guidance in this, and trust the answer. Working in a deeper way with emotion may or may not be the right next step for you at this time. That said, I don't think there's going to be any harm in doing the guided meditation practice that I've created for this series. We'll stay somewhat on the surface, but just know that regular practice this way with your emotions can and will trigger fear. As we've been discussing, we project the grosser emotions out as a way to hide underlying fear and guilt. Okay, so let's go through the steps we'll use to consciously work with emotions as a practice in a meditation setting. The first thing we do after sitting or laying down for meditation is to make a statement about what the emotion actually is. What is this emotion, really? The fact of the matter is that according to A Course in Miracles, whether it's anger or grief or resentment or embarrassment, the statement is, know first, this is fear. This is because, as we've talked a lot about in parts 1 through 3, all the afflicted emotions are fragments of fear. The very next thing to follow this statement with is, I must have placed this here to block love. I recognize this as fear, and I must have placed this here to block love. These statements are the first 2 steps in what's known as the correction of fear practice from Chapter 2 of the complete and annotated edition of A Course in Miracles. If you're a new student to the course, you're very likely going to resist these statements. I must have put this fear here is either going to feel like self-flagellation or that we're allowing someone else who we think is the cause of our fear to get off scot-free without getting their own comeuppance. All practices in A Course in Miracles can feel like this sometimes, and it takes time and patience to even begin to conceptualize the ideas of attack thoughts and projection that we've been talking about in this series. Please do re-listen to parts 1 through 3 if you need some refreshers on this sensitive subject of attack thoughts and projection. And just know that no matter how long any of us have been studying the course, even if it's been decades like I have, we're all still very much in kindergarten with this. It's not easy. The next thing we'll do is consciously call up an emotional reaction, if there isn't one that's already showing up. But even if there is already something present or welling up, we can actively start to trigger it even more. I guess you could say we're trying to push our own buttons, but in a very conscious way. Remember, this practice is to help us familiarize ourselves with our reactions so that we can be more and more constructive and less destructive when emotions arise in our daily lives with other people. This is mind training. So we're using our thoughts to arouse this emotion more and more as we begin our practice session. We're actively thinking about the person or the situation or the memory that's triggering this particular emotional response. We're running the storyline in our head, thinking of it, recalling all the things about it, what he or she said or did, or how stupid I was for what I said or what I did. We're giving ourselves permission here to activate the emotion using the story, which is the thought or the thoughts that go with it. And we do this until we really can feel the emotion arising in our body. And then we completely drop the story. We remove it from our practice process. We take the needle off the record. This sounds easy, but it's actually quite challenging. This is because the story and the emotion are so tied together, we can hardly see how they could come apart. There's an addictive quality to this codependence. We're addicted to both the story and the emotion, but weirdly, the addiction is them together. In a deep way, we're working on breaking a very unconscious addiction cycle. Without the storyline, which is really just the thought of the other doing it to me, right? The other person, the group of people, my parents, the world, even myself doing it to myself, or a past life experience, whatever it is, without the story of what happened between you and that other, the emotion is no longer what we thought because there's no glue to bind it to anything. When the other is out of the picture, or the mental component is out, or what we think about it is out, we find we're gazing at something closer to the truth. It's just raw energy of a kind. Now, I'm not saying that what we're now looking at is good or is our destination. It's just looking at something closer to what it really is without the story or the thought behind it. There's a passage in one of my favorite chapters in the course called The Sanity of Love, where Jesus helps Helen and Bill work through their hatred of one another. Jesus says, "Be not afraid of this journey into fear, for it is not your destination, and we will walk through it in safety, for peace is not far, and you will be led in its light." Jesus and the Holy Spirit are there with us in this process. We never have to meditate alone. We never have to go into any part of our psyche alone, including our physical bodies or any forms of the fear we're projecting. From here, we keep looking at the emotion in its raw form without the story. What does it actually feel like? How does it present itself? How big is it? What's the texture of it? What's the exact quality of the feeling? And what am I actually feeling apart from what I think about it? We're just looking and feeling without judging it, nor are we trying to fix it or change it. As we get more skilled at this, we start to see things underneath the emotion that we didn't notice before. If we're consciously working with Jesus, which I recommend, he may take you deeper into the heart of the emotion or show you openings in the emotional patterns. These moments of looking into the openings can be extraordinarily peaceful and calm, like moments of rest. These are moments where we've gone deep enough to get glimpses of our miracle mind. Correction always occurs in this space, however quick the moment comes and goes. This experience is what draws us back again to our practice, whether it happens by way of doing this kind of work, or by extending healing or forgiveness to others, or by sharing love in any way, or by doing the practices from the workbook or other modalities. No matter how we ultimately reach these moments of peace, we need them to witness there is something behind the gross intensity of the world of bodies and emotion. The more we do this, the more we see that the body and emotions have been blocking us from seeing this. Be not afraid of this journey into fear, for it is not your destination, and we will walk through it in safety. For peace is not far, and you will be led in its light. Something I want to say here is that our goal in every session isn't necessarily to find these moments of peace. I hesitate in saying that because, of course, it actually is the goal. Peace has to be the goal. It's why we're doing this work. But that said, it doesn't always happen at first, and we can get dissuaded if it doesn't, and then we want to quit. And this is why it's so important to recognize that Jesus and the Holy Spirit are with us in this. Give over to them any corrections that your mind needs. You may not always feel or experience that correction, but with them there, you can trust that healing and correction is happening. Moving on here, and we're almost done. At any point in our exercise, as we're looking and feeling into the raw emotion, we can insert a new idea or a new thought to replace the old story. Really, we can use whatever practice statement we're using for the day. This exercise is actually a great way to apply our practice statements. I could see peace instead of this. I ask for this to be replaced with love. Let miracles replace all grievances. There is no love but God's. Using a statement to replace the old story is how I recommend closing out the meditation as well. Any statement will do. Sometimes the perfect statement for the moment just comes out of the blue. A word about ending your meditation practice. What I recommend is that you consciously set a time limit that you'll practice. 15 minutes, 30 minutes, etc. You're going to get triggered by your emotions, and your ego is going to try to wiggle you out of your practice session. If you preset the time and commit to that allotted time, you'll learn to stay with what comes up. Not only stay in your seat, but stay present with yourself, stay present with the experience, and stay present in your body. That said, if very intense emotion or physical sensations arise that you feel you aren't ready for, and if you know you have trauma-related sensations due to abuse, please enter very slowly and come out if it's too much. You may even want to just set 3 to 5 minutes at a time to touch in briefly on your emotions and go back and forth from the intensity of the emotion to your practice statement. I call this touch and go. And remember what I said about asking for guidance on whether this is the best next step for you. If there's a history of emotional trauma or abuse, this, of course, should not take the place of other forms of professional therapy. I want to end by saying that this practice really can be done with any physical sensation or pain in the body. The same technique we use for emotions can be used for any body part or any ailment or pain. The technique is the same. Number one, we start with the statement or something similar. I recognize this as fear, and I must have placed this here to block love. Number two, then we feel into the specific painful area, even if it's the entire body, as in chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia. What exactly does this feel like? What is the texture of the sensation? Number three, we take the story out of it. Try to disengage with what we think about the pain and focus on the exact sensation that we're feeling. Number four, we ask Jesus for help looking at this. If there are gaps or moments of neutrality in the pain sensation, we can take his hand to help us look closer, no matter how fleeting these moments of rest and peace are. Number five, we insert a new thought. I could see peace instead of this, etc. We do this anytime it feels appropriate during the session, and especially to close out the session. And with that, I've given you a guided meditation you can use as a template of sorts for practicing on your own. The link again is in the show notes. In the meditation, I'll run you through a few different emotional scenarios so you can see how it can be used for any emotion, any kind of pain, or any reaction that arises. And for anyone interested, I'm developing a deeper dive program into these practices, which will also include in-depth work in how to forgive the course way. Stay tuned for that. For now, I will leave you with that to ponder. Thanks for listening to the ForgiveNest Podcast for A Course in Miracles. I'm Alison Anton. It was great talking to you.